Now, the next day, we set off up it. We live in the Lake District. We go out a lot at weekends. We have experience in the basics, but certainly nothing of this scale. There is a technical trick here, which only the rock climbers will understand, which I'll explain very quickly, because there are a few of you here. Normally, when you climb a giant cliff, you split it up into rope lengths. Rope lengths are approximately 50, 60 meters. So a 1,000-foot cliff will be about 20 rope lengths, and that takes a lot of time. Normally, the leader goes up first, that would be me, and then the other people come up on the end of the rope, and you belay them up. The problem with that is it's very difficult to climb as more than a 3, because you usually use 2 ropes. And the other problem is, when you're with kids, the most experienced climber, me, is up at the top, yelling at them, "You're going the wrong way!" You can't hear each other. You're 50 meters away. You're up on a mountain. They're getting scared. Stop screaming at me. Mum's getting stressed too. It's not very conducive. But there's a new technique which we developed. It's been developed in North America for more extreme ascents, the stuff you saw earlier. It's called fix and follow. So the leader goes up in the same way and then fixes the rope. I go up first. Then I come back down, and then we all ascend the rope on a progress capture device, these little things that go up but not down, and we all climb together. And it's a total game changer. I use a super long rope so you can link pitches, because you lose a lot of time on the belays. And instead of me being 50 meters above screaming at them what to do, I'm right next to them. So if Freya gets scared, which is quite possible on something like that, Dad's there to reassure them that you're safe. You can hang on the rope, you can prove that it's safe. And also, if they get stuck, physically stuck, you can point out the way to go. We talk about the fairy staircase. On easier climbs like this, the fairies have made a staircase for you. It's all about your footwork, and you just have to find the staircase. You need to go right a bit, and then look, you can pretty much walk up that ledge, and it's a real game changer. This was the first time we tested it in anger. And Freya, who's 7 years old, climbed the whole thing under her own steam without any help in a single day. A team of 2 adult climbers set up ahead of us. We let them go in front, and we kept up with them for the first 2/3 of the climb, because it's a really kind of revolutionary technique. Meanwhile, Jackson is on his mum's back with that same system. He loves it there. He's close to his mum. He's a happy little chappie. My wife's a doctor. She's a GP, so effectively her job is risk management. And there we are. It worked a treat. The climb eases quite a lot near the top. He got carried up 90% of the climb, and the last section is a lot lower angle. So we took him out of the carrier and let him climb the last few pitches by his own, as he likes to say. I remember taking that picture and thinking, ooh, that's a good one, isn't it? And then when we got down, we had a look through the photos, and I thought, oh, shit, that is a good one. And then my wife and I had a long discussion about whether or not it would be prudent to put that photograph online, to put it on Insta. I'm a famous climber. I'm a professional climber. I know I'm followed by various journalists, and I thought that's going to get noticed. And I thought, let's not bother. We're clearly going to open a can of worms there, and we're going to get loads of shit about being irresponsible parents, and someone's going to call social services. But my wife was like, well, fuck them. We know that we have our own children's best interests at heart. We know that we care about our own children more than anybody else in the world. And I genuinely believe, and she genuinely believes, that this is good for children. It's good. Obviously, this is quite extreme. I'm a professional climber. But exposure to risk, exposure to adventure, exposure to nature, exposure in general is really good for them. So let's put it on there, and hopefully, yeah, surely we're going to get some crap, but hopefully it'll inspire more people than it appalls. And sure enough, it got picked up on, and it got picked up on by a journalist almost straight away. It went out on the wire, and within a week, that picture had been seen by tens of millions of people all over the world. It was in a dozen newspapers all over the place, because it's obviously quite a striking image, particularly in Asia. It was really big in Asia. In Japan, it was in like 3 newspapers printed in Japan. Because it's an unusual image to see a cute little boy in such an out-of-context environment. We got to the summit just around sunset, and thankfully on the Piers Badil there's this amazing little bivouac hut on the top. And the next morning, which was actually my 40th birthday when we took that photo with a self-timer, a pair of golden eagles swooped right past us. If you've ever seen a golden eagle fly, it's amazing. They don't fly, they just soar. They didn't move, they just came across. And they're massive. They look like sheets of plywood flying across the sky. They came pretty close, and you can see how hard Jess is holding on to Jackson. There's a 1,000-foot cliff right there, and it did look like one of those birds could take him away. But what an experience to see a pair of golden eagles up close and personal. It was really amazing, something they'll never forget. Now, the Alps is awesome. It's the only mountain range in the world. It's a really serious mountain range. People don't realize how serious it is because of all the ski lift infrastructure and the roads and the mountain huts and all the rest of it, which is wonderful because it enables you to get into an environment that would otherwise be extremely difficult to access. It would be a proper expedition to climb any of those mountains. The flip side to that coin is that it's busy, and that access brings a lot more people, and people can cause problems in mountains. People can drop rocks, people can cut avalanches. That hut has 6 bunk beds in it. If there's one other team in there, it's not that comfortable. If there's 2 other teams in there, it's a disaster, right? You're all piled on top of each other. Thankfully, on that occasion, there was no one there. We had it to ourselves, and it was wonderful. But that's quite unusual. Having been through this and various other experiences, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to do my day job, wouldn't it be cool to do a proper expedition with the kids, to go into a really remote place for a period of weeks and get into a real remote environment, which is what I love to do. It's kind of combining the 2 things I love most in the world. And I knew just the place. This is a really special place. It's called the Wind River Range in North America. It's not a national park, it's a wilderness area. It's right next to the Teton National Park. The problem is with American national parks, although they're wonderful institutions that really protect nature, they are very uptight places to go on adventures. You need permits for everything, and it's actually very difficult to navigate to go on a proper adventure. Wilderness areas are much looser. Basically, there's no roads, there's no motorized vehicles allowed, there's no aviation allowed, and there's no infrastructure, there's no huts, there's nothing. There's just footpaths, and that's it. But you don't need permits to camp, you don't need permits to fish. When you're in there, you can do whatever you want. But they're not easy places to get to. We wanted to spend 2 weeks exploring this beautiful mountain range. 2 weeks as a family of 4, self-supported. So that's all your food, all your camping gear, all your climbing gear. That's impossible. That's minimum 100 kilos of stuff. Did you know you can rent llamas? That's the thing, you can rent llamas. And they're cheap, they're about $100 a day each. You've got to get them in 2s. Llamas are they're cameloids, they're in the camel family. They're extremely self-sufficient. They just eat the grass that they find. You bring a little bit of feed as a treat at the end of the day. They can go for days without water. And they're extremely easy to handle. They're not like horses, which are hard to handle. They're like dogs, they just walk along with you. Well-trained llamas like Tiberius and Titan are very tactile. They enjoy human interaction. Obviously, the kids love them. And it's the thing, you can rent llamas, and they can carry about 35 kilos each. So Tiberius has got 30, Titan, the big guy's got 35, and I've got 35 as well. And that's everything we need for 2 days in the Wild West as a family with no support, just the 4 of us out there. Just experiencing a place like that in autonomy is wonderful. The lakes are teeming with fish. My little boy Jackson caught a fish on his first ever cast of a rod. Now he thinks that always happens, and he's really into fishing. It's not quite as much fun in the Lake District. We saw a moose within half a day. We saw bears. We found penny bun mushrooms, these giant mushrooms that are edible, foraging away. It's a really, really beautiful experience. But as climbers, I always like to have a purpose to the adventure, and we went to climb those 2 mountains in the background, which it's called the Wolf's Head. So yeah, a couple of days hiking in, fishing, foraging, enjoying it. Then we left the llamas tied up in a meadow by a stream, and we went over a pass into a place called the Cirque of the Towers. It's kind of the epicenter of climbing in the Wind River Range. And that is a mountain called Pingora, the west face of Pingora. That's 2,000 feet tall. It's like a giant cliff. Jackson's 4 now, Freya's just turned 9. And the left skyline of that mountain, there's a sneaky way up. You can basically walk and scramble without ropes to more than halfway, but there's still about 600 feet of proper climbing. And this time, the year after the Peas were Deal, Jackson wanted to do it by his own. And he did. 4 years old, and he climbed the whole thing. We thought we might have to carry him, so Jess didn't have a bag, but he didn't. He managed to climb the whole thing as a 4-year-old by himself, by his own. That was the hardest climb we did. That's 700 feet. That's a massive, it's a proper climb. Not only did he do that, he didn't get carried once on the 56 miles that we did in that 2 weeks. One day, we did 12 miles, and the last part of the day was a 3,000-foot ascent over a pass. That's Scafell Pike, the highest mountain in England, at the end of a 9-mile hike. He was absolutely shattered at the end of it, but he's a little 4-year-old, and he walked for like 12 hours with a giant hill at the end. I remember Jess saying, do you think it's possible to walk a child to death? You can do it with dogs, apparently not children. There he is, look at him go. 4 years old, he's a little, but he was psyched, he was going for it. He'd seen his sister do it, he'd seen his dad do it, and he wanted it. And he did it. And there he is on the top of these pointy mountains. Something nice about pointy mountains, isn't there? So yeah, then the next day, that's Pingora there, and this is the Wolf's Head, the east ridge of the Wolf's Head. It's one of the 50 classic climbs in North America, really epic. Actually very similar architecturally to Ulvatana. This is called the Sidewalk. It's about 45 degrees, 50 degrees in angle. It's about 1 meter wide with 800-foot drops on both sides. It's really epic. Freya's 7 years old, and she was scared, but enjoying it. Fear is exciting when it's well managed and you've got the safety taken care of. What a thing to do with your daughter. Look at that. There's a full 1,000-foot cliff underneath you there. And this is a little girl, 7 years old, walking along a ledge that's about 6 inches wide with a giant drop underneath you with her dad. What a wonderful way to spend time. As I mentioned, for me, it's really awesome to be able to bring the two loves of my life, young family and extreme adventures, together. This is something that Freya said about 10 days into the trip. Dad, being in nature is like opening a window into your heart to let in the happiness that was always there, only you just didn't know it before. I wrote it down straight away because that's a big part of the reason that we do this stuff. Okay, I've got no idea where I am timing-wise, probably over time, but I'm just going to show you what we did last summer. This is a mountain in Norway called Stettin. It's Norway's national mountain. It's relatively easy to get to. It's in Europe. We made a film which is coming out next month. The world premieres at the Banff Mountain Film Festival next week. And this is the trailer.
I really think there is a lack of adventure in a lot of children's lives. I'd say there are times when we are going to push the kids to their limits. So to the rest of the world, Leo is an amazing explorer, climber, expedition leader. But to us, to the kids, he is husband, dad. He's the guy that reads the bedtime stories, does the washing up. So doing crazy expeditions and climbing up huge cliffs, to them, they don't see that as being unusual in any way. It's just what Dad does and part of what we do as a family.
To be honest, this is definitely the biggest challenge we've undertaken as a family. It's not the longest route we've done, but it is by far the hardest.
I think it will be this difficult.
What a day. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Leo. That is an awesome chat. Can I ask you a cheeky question? You weren't expecting this. Of all those amazing experiences of adventuring with your kids, do you have like a favorite memory, or is it just a series of like, oh?
Tough question. So this summer we went to a place called the Picos de Europa just a couple of months ago in northern Spain, and we climbed a thing called Peña Santa, the south face of Peña Santa, which was the hardest one we've done so far. And there was a massive lightning storm. We camped on the top in that same tiny tent just below the summit, and there was a hugely violent electrical storm, like possibly the most serious electrical storm I've ever experienced. And it was quite alarming to be in that high alpine environment in a big storm with 2 little kids. But it was such an amazing experience. We had everything we needed. We were safe. We were sheltered. We were in a safe spot. There was this full-on tempest going on outside, and we were really safe inside. So, that was borderline. We were almost into the kind of red area of where you don't want to go, especially not with kids. But none of us will ever forget that experience. Often the kind of worst experiences in hindsight can be the best.
Yeah, lovely. I could listen to you forever. Leo Houlding, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.